I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time.
Hello and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I'm so excited and honored every week to introduce you to a fabulous woman. And I say fabulous not because, they're exceptions, but because they are examples of what it looks like to be mission driven, what it looks like to be standing in the field of their purpose, what it looks like to be a way shower. So we do this every week. Come back, guarantee you'll get nuggets from every single woman. We're on all the platforms: Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, Amazon, video on YouTube. Look for Women Awakening with Cynthia James. You can also go to my website, cynthiajames.net. There's lots of gifts for you, lots of information, and you can join my private community. I am introducing you today to someone new to me. Her name, Sabrina Merage Naim. She's a passionate and engaged philanthropist, venture capitalist, podcast host, and documentary film investor and producer. She founded the Sabrina Merage Foundation in 2008 with the invention of building bridges between diverse populations. In 2020, Sabrina founded Evoke Media in order to create connection, cultivate conversations, and drive social media and social impact through the power of storytelling. She created and has co-hosted Evoke's original podcast. And what it says, I love here, it says, breaking glass, dropping listeners into intimate conversations with change makers who are tackling complex issues impacting women around the world. She's one of few female founders of a venture capital firm, Echo Capital. And she has appeared in New York Times, Thrive Global, E-Jewish Philanthropy, Family Business Magazine, and Forward Females. Sabrina, welcome. I am so glad that you are here.
I am so glad to be here. Thank you, Cynthia.
Well, I want to start with how you grew up. Where did you grow up? People think that successful people just sort of dropped on the planet with silver gold spoons in their mouth. But how did you grow up?
Well, I am the daughter of immigrants, so I'm a first generation American, and my family immigrated from Iran. Unfortunately, a part of the world that has a lot of complications these days. And I would say that that was kind of the first important anecdote in terms of my journey is that my family left their country of origin during a really difficult, traumatic time and left basically everything they had worked for behind and had to come to a new country and start fresh. And so, for those of us who didn't have that experience of having to flee their country of origin during a very challenging circumstance, we don't understand what it's like to really drive, for success, what it's like to start from square one again and again. So I was born into that kind of culture of nothing is owed to you, that you have the capacity to build amazing things, but that it is not going to be handed over on a silver platter or with a silver spoon in your mouth. And the most important thing I would say is the message that my family gave me from a very early age, which was that no matter what you accomplish, it is our responsibility to make the world a better place, to leave the world a better place than we found it. So philanthropy and social impact was a big part of that. It was woven in throughout my upbringing, but from starting from my great grandmother to my grandmother to both of my parents and my brother and I. But I was born in Los Angeles and grew up in Denver. And my father is a successful businessman, having started again in this country. And and my mother is a successful artist. And I like to say that I was fortunate enough to borrow from both of them, his business acumen and her creative mind. And I try as much as possible to merge those two things.
Well, what a beautiful story. I've had a few guests on this show who come from immigrant parents or grandparents. And the thing that is always striking to me is the level of commitment to life, the extraordinary work ethic, and the desire to make a difference. So, um, I want to know from this background, I mean, what what moved you into the work that you're doing today? Was it education? Was it work experience?
I don't know. It was kind of a long journey. I don't think that it was a straight line in any way. Um, have been working in the finance world for a long time, the venture capital fund that you shared, Echo Capital Group, and that was something that I felt very passionate about in terms of how to be a young woman in a very male-dominated world, a young woman of color in a largely older white male-dominated world. I really I liked kind of going against the grain in that way. But then always there was that overlay of how am I giving back? So even in my finance years, I have been running my own foundation, and my family is a bit unique in that we don't have one family foundation. We each have our own, and that was a very intentional decision from my father, who really wanted to encourage my brother and I to follow our own individual passions, to decide what was it that we wanted to do to leave our mark on the world. And so I had the challenge, but also the benefit of being able to explore how I would give back. And that was something that it's shifted and taken different shapes and forms. And I've kind of um, at times ridden the wave, and I've pushed in different directions when I needed to. And a lot of it comes from this desire really to move the needle even 1 inch, half an inch towards a more um, empathetic, equitable, safer world. And that takes a lot of forms, But Evoke Media came to me with the understanding that storytelling, and this is what you do, right? And it's what I do in different formats, but that storytelling can really change hearts and minds. That the impact of stories, of real human experiences that you see on a screen or that you hear in your car or whatever it is, that can really it can make an impact on you. It can really change you in some of the most beautiful, important ways.
Yeah. So I want to break it down a little bit. So it says in your bio, documentary film investor.
Yeah.
So, so what makes a film worth your investing? You know, what makes you want to get involved in a way that's going to bring this idea to life?
Yeah, it's such a good question. The truth is that I get pitched worthy concepts all the time. And I wish that I could be, pulled in every which direction. But so often it comes down to instinct. It comes down to how a project lands with me, um, my idea of what the impact could be at the end of the day, because I do have a lot of interest in what happens after the credits roll. Someone goes and watches a documentary or watches a social issue narrative film or mini series or whatever it is, and then they leave that theater or they turn off their TV, and then what? How is it changing the lens that they look at the world? How is it changing their behaviors or the way that they speak to people or the narrative that they understood differently? So I really want to be able to identify that and then what aspect. And a big part of that is partnership, right? It is understanding that the people that I am partnering with, whether it's the filmmakers or the producers or other folks on the project, that we have to see eye to eye, that there needs to be an understanding that we're all moving in the same direction and that we all have similar motivations. So I would say it's really the people first, the the impact story, and then, pure instinct.
Yeah. But what you're talking about with the partnerships, is that what engaged philanthropy is?
Yes, I mean, that's certainly a part of it. There are a lot of philanthropists that write a check and take a step back and say good luck to you, and that's worthy. But that's just never how it's never how I've worked. I see this as truly my calling, my work, what engages me every day. And so very often when I'm part of a project, I will identify areas that I feel like I can leverage my business experience or my acumen or my venture philanthropy experience and to really step in as a value-added partner and not just as a silent check.
I love that. I was recently talking to someone. My last book was called My Voice Matters and Does My Voice Matter? And people have been asking me about making it a film. And and the whole conversation has been like, who do you partner with that feels in alignment? When I was looking at your foundation, it said with the intention of building bridges between diverse populations. And I want to talk about that because there's so much divisiveness and division going on in our world right now. It's like, how do we build those bridges so we learn how to talk to each other, so we learn how to be with each other, so we learn how to respect and honor each other and our different cultures and belief systems?
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting harder, unfortunately. It's feeling um, very polarized. Everything that we're experiencing, I mean, we just finished an election. Um, the narrative has not changed after the election. The language that we use, the us versus them, it hasn't shifted. And I think what we need to acknowledge is that a lot of the issues that impact us feel deeply personal to us. Um, it could really change your life. It changes the way you look at the world. It changes how safe you feel or how heard you feel, or where you belong. And so that can't just go unacknowledged, right? Or
Right.
unnoticed. That being said, we also have to understand that people have different motivations, right? If we're talking about politics, for example, which is like the most complex and difficult of all of these issues. Um, you know, there's so often the narrative that if you voted for that one, then you must hate me or or wish ill upon me or not understand what I need to be able to survive in this world. And most of the time, that's just not the case, right? And so for us to be able to step into the shoes of someone else's experience and motivations and the things that matter to them is so hard, but it is so necessary. And it is a daily practice for me as an individual, for sure, to have a to come at it from a place of curiosity. And this is, my latest podcast, A Fine Mess. It feels a lot like we are living this every day. We're inundated with so much information and news and social media that continues to divide us and continues um, to brick us into our echo chambers more and more, that we don't even have exposure to have conversations with people who might have a different lens or experience of the world. So it behooves us to kind of force ourselves out of our respective echo chambers and to come at these questions from a place of curiosity and real listening. And that's hard. It is so hard. But what I've realized is that we get nowhere when we're just preaching our own, you know, big ideas to the choir. And and so this is one of the reasons why storytelling has become so important to me is because when you are able to go with an open mind to listen or watch a story that feels so dramatically different from your lived experience, suddenly your mind opens a little bit more and you start asking questions that maybe you weren't open to before. And just taking those first few steps as individuals and as a society, that's the way we get a little bit closer to each other again.
Yeah, I mean, it's why I created the show because I wanted women from all walks of life and different backgrounds in different parts of the world to be able to bring their voices and have a dialogue. And, the interesting thing is, and I really want to talk about this, what is it, do you think, that causes humanity to forget? I mean, it's like we're reliving history over
Mhm.
and over again where there's wars and there's genocide and there's people um losing their children and women, not being accepted or honored. I mean, what is it, do you think, that causes us to go back to sleep and just forget any of that existed?
Yeah, I think it's an unfortunate reality that one of human nature's worst traits is that we have a very short-term memory. We just keep forgetting that we've walked this path again and again and again. And if we had the capacity to just read up a little bit more on our own history, we would understand that we keep falling into the same pit over and over again. I agree with you. I mean, I think it's such a shame. It's such a shame that have, we ha to be able to put a mirror up to yourself first, right? And say, how am I complicit in this? How am I complicit in falling into these same traps again and again, or regurgitating the narratives again and again, instead of questioning, this is like a line that someone is trying to force down my throat. And let me have a little bit of critical thinking and step back and try and understand what the big picture is and where I fit into that and push back on that narrative. It's not easy, but it's like true. We've been spoon fed again, whether it's, legacy news media or social media or just our own internal circles. We keep getting spoon fed lies, I think, because yeah, I mean, we do. We forget like we have lived this life many times. We just need to educate ourselves a little bit more and open our lens to that truth.
Yeah, but it's so I love what you just said, but the other part of it is it's like looking at yourself and how are you responding to life and how are you showing up, but also recognizing that it isn't just about you and your feelings. I was
Mm.
in this group and somebody posted something about their feelings, a political feeling, and based on their history and their culture, and what ensued was pretty amazing. It was like people were in inquiry and curiosity, like you said. People were saying, well, I can't agree with that because of so and so and so, but what if it's not just about the micro? What if it's about I mean, it was an incredible thing. Then somebody posted, we can't have political conversations here. And I
Oh.
thought, uh, but but there was so much love and respect. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. I mean, your podcast is called Fine Mess.
Yeah.
Do we get to talk about solutions?
Yeah. You know, I mean, I wish I had solutions. I think really I come at it more from a place of questions. And so many of these challenging issues don't have that big golden solution that we're all looking for, as challenging as that is to acknowledge. I wish that we could just have like that one big bright solution that we could all grasp at. But what I've learned is that coming at it from a place of curiosity and with questions can often get us to a place of understanding, a lot more than this like search for an arbitrary solution that may not exist with such nuanced and complex issues. Um, I do think, though, that, the example that you just brought up, the beauty of that is all of those people have a different life view. They have different motivations. They come at this issue from very different backgrounds, and they probably won't all agree, right? But to be able to have a platform to speak from a place of respect and, mutual respect and curiosity, like that's the thing, to be able to
100%.
have that dialogue and say, like, look, I respect where you're coming from. I hope you respect where I'm coming from. I'm not going to agree with you on this issue, but like, okay, fine. I see why you feel this way. Like, that's it, right? We don't all have to agree, but
Right.
just to have the ability to have the conversation is has be, in my mind is almost non-existent. It's getting less and less. It's just the ability to have a challenging conversation from curiosity with mutual respect and not want to like kill everybody or, I was just reading like then I think it was the New York Times brought like a psychiatrist to answer questions about, the holidays are upon us, and what do you do when you're coming to the table with family members that have differing views and you feel personally attacked? And her advice was like, oh, you don't owe them anything. You don't owe them your time. Like you don't need to put yourself in that position. Protect your heart. And I was like, what a shame. What a missed
No.
opportunity. It's like it really is the opposite of that, right? It is, yes, I mean, protect your heart for sure, but also challenge yourself to go into a conversation that might open your worldview a little bit, right? Like challenge yourself to the possibility that you're not right about everything and that you might learn something or that you might have a little bit more appreciation for someone else's experience and worldview. That's what we should be doing.
Well, yeah, and family. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I've heard a ton of stories about families who are breaking apart because of this, that, and the other. But I had a conversation the other day with this amazing Asian man, and his one of his parents was put in one of the detention centers here when
Uh,
and and his family is polarized politically.
mm,
And so I said to him, "Well, tell me how you're navigating this." And this was so cool. He said, love doesn't go anywhere.
mm,
And he said, we can disagree, but are we going to let our our belief systems around a way things should be operating cut off the loving and the connection of a family?
yeah.
I thought that was so spectacular because I know it's hard. It is hard, but it's like, so I'm not going to talk to you again because you're over here and I'm over there, but we grew up together, we played together, we did things together. I mean, I
Mhm.
think it's um I used to say this to my clients, love is eternal, form changes. And that maybe we could put more attention on. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be loved, and I don't know anybody that
Mm,
doesn't want to be held or seen or supported.
absolutely.
So I want to know from your work, with all the things that you're doing and all the places that you've been, what's your vision for what's next?
Oh, lofty. I often have to kind of reel myself in. But maybe I shouldn't. I think my desire is really um to continue telling impactful, meaningful stories in order to bring us back together. I think that there is such a rift between us so it's not just political, right? There's a lot of rifts racially, ethnically, religiously, um, I don't know, socioeconomically, like the list goes on and on. And as you said, even among family members. And and we need stories to bring ourselves back to a middle ground, and to have more understanding of the complexity and nuance of the world that is so beautiful and something that we always celebrated, right? We always celebrated particularly in this country, the the diversity, the vast patchwork that exists in so many ways, and we need to be able to celebrate that again. And that has to include everyone. It can't just be like us over here, but not those guys.
Right.
Um, it has to include everyone, and it has to be from a place of love, and it has to be from a place of understanding, and it has to be from a place of empathy. And so my goal is to continue this work until we start to feel that paradigm shift happen and maybe beyond.
Well, I'll stand with you. I think that's a pretty awesome goal. You know, tell me how people find you and your work and world. And I don't mean to open the door so 9,000 people start pitching you, but but how do people find you?
So find us on Instagram. We are Evoke Media. Find our website. We are evokemedia.com. And there are a lot of really beautiful projects on there that people should be watching and listening to. And, we have one of our documentaries. Seems like it's shortlisted for an Oscar. So things are happening. It's called Sugarcane. It's a beautiful film. I highly recommend it. And A Fine Mess is I also highly recommend, there's a lot going on, so come join us.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I'm looking at you, and I don't know, women are defying gravity and aging, but you're young and you have such poise and such groundedness about you. It's it's
Thank
it's
you.
quite wonderful. And
Thank
I
you so
asked the
much.
same last question of everybody on this show. The show's called Women Awakening. What do you think is the most important thing about women awakening on this moment on the planet?
Supporting each other.
Mm.
We were fed a lie that women have to compete against each other and undercut each other and that there's scarcity of opportunity, and that is not true. We are in a moment where we have the opportunity to hold each other up and lift each other up and support each other and celebrate each other. And that is the most important thing we can do right now.
Oh, Sabrina, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for being here and bringing your heart.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
All right, ladies, I close this show the same way every time. Same message, but different words. I love what Sabrina just said, and it brought to mind, what if we knew we needed each other? What if we knew that our hearts and our gifts and our nurturing nature was the part of the transformative agent that this planet needs? Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just know that you matter and that your gifts are essential and that together we can bring enough love and enough light to transform this planet. So grateful to be with you. I love you. I'll see you next time.